Welcome to Life Gloss, a beauty podcast for sassy and seasoned women who have lived life and have a drawer full of lip gloss to prove it. We're your hosts, Susan Gerdeman
and Hillary Clark Mina. Join us each Thursday as we discuss life and how it relates to the world of beauty inside and out.
Susan, I had to push record because our hearts are breaking over here as we're talking about this RIP episode. I figure let's not talk about talking about it. Let's talk about it. The brands that are gone, the things we love. This one's going to be short and sweet, but an homage to all of our favorite things from yesteryear.
You know, I didn't think that I would get so emotional, but as I'm talking to you and we're going through the list of what we're going to be talking about on today's episode, I was like getting a little choked up. You know, some of these products, some of these companies, some of these memories, you know, are just it makes me sad, you know, that not just that they're gone, but that I'm not there doing it anymore. So yeah, there's that too.
Right. Well, beauty has a magical way of transporting you through time and taking you back. I mean, of course, we all know our olfactory and fragrance is famous for bringing us back, but you can't tell me you don't know where you were when you used your first spice lipstick, or, you know, I still remember using Flamingo Fancy on my legs to go out because I decided I was going to wear short skirts and they gave me a little color. Like, that was an exciting time in my life. And it's funny how those products, or those containers, even, like, I saw a Ralph Lauren, oh my gosh, it's going to come to me at some point here, one of his fragrances that he did, and I just saw someone bring a bottle out.
Lauren.
No, Safari.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I was transported to being, 15 or 16 when Safari came out. Remember his ad campaigns with the alligator luggage, and they looked like they were world travelers, but in, you know, camel hair and silk and cashmere. And it was such a great campaign. And I remember I was in Southern California that year in high school.
You know, we're going to have to do an episode on fragrances because I don't know if our listeners know or not, but I am fragrance certified by the Fragrance Foundation, and I started out, I guess you could say, my very first job in the cosmetic industry was as a perfume girl, spraying people when you used to stand in the aisles and spray people. And I was in high school on the weekends, and it was for Maxims de Paris, and they had a fragrance, and I had to dress in a 1920s flapper costume, and I think it's still at my mom's house. And I had to walk by at Jordan's in the South Shore Plaza in Braintree, Massachusetts. And it was my job to literally go up to people in a fake French accent and say, "Try Maxims de Paris." And oh my God, I think because I was a theater kid, they were like, "This girl will do this." I sold so many bottles of that fragrance, and I can still smell it. It was so 80s. It was so spicy, so strong. So I started out in fragrance, and was doing the Charleston in the middle of the aisles at Jordan Marsh. Come on, it doesn't get any cringier than that.
But there's a beauty to it too. And here's what a lot of people don't know. The budgets for fragrance, if you were in the beauty industry in the 80s and the 90s, the people working the fragrance counters, particularly the reps that would go store to store, or if you were just like, you know, like you were, like a indoor special, they would make so much money. Those people that we used to run from that were spraying fragrance on us, they made so much money, and their expense accounts were huge. And the trainings and the parties, they stayed in the nicest hotels. I mean, we went into luxury beauty, but fragrance, that's where the money was at in the 80s and 90s.
Hill, I want to tell you that I think they were paying me, and I'm going back, this is like 83, maybe. I want to say they were paying me like $10 or $15 an hour to spray fragrance and hand out samples and do the Charleston in the middle of, you know, in my 1920s outfit in the middle of the aisles at Jordan's. I remember like making this money and being like, I was like flabbergasted. And you're right. I went to the trainings and, I was 16 years old, 15 years old. And I only did it for like a couple of weekends and, because I had school and obviously, but I was helping. I think it was a friend of my dad's, this woman who was in the cosmetic industry or something. And I just look back and I think to those times. And that's when I was exposed to some of the brands we're going to talk about now. So,
Incredible, right?
yeah.
So step into your time machine, life glossers. We're going to go back and we're going to talk about some things that we loved, that we remember, most of which are no longer around. I did make an error. I put a few things on the list that I didn't think were around anymore, and they're still kicking. So shame on me. It's good to do these little exercises once in a while, and maybe we'll help them, revitalize their businesses, because you guys may have thought they were gone too.
So we divided it into two categories for everybody. And the first is sort of well-known brands. These are brands that when we say them, and we'll give a couple of highlights on them and talk about them. A lot of you will start laughing or saying, "Oh my God, that's right. I remember that." And then there's classic luxury, the stuff that, like I just told you, I was first exposed to as a teenager. Now that stuff is old. So let's start out with some well-known brands. So the first brand that I think everyone is going to collectively gasp and remember the fragrance that we were all wearing in the 90s, Prescriptives, and the fragrance was Calyx.
Calyx. Everybody wore it. Boy, they really hit that one on the nose, pun intended, when they created that one. I mean, that one swept. It was bigger than the Issey Miyake, Anis Anis. I mean,
It was
all of
huge.
it. It was
It was huge.
huge.
It was huge. And I have to say, I worked with Prescriptives and went in and did the New York Fashion Week 7th on 6th, did the runway shows, went in with the Prescriptives makeup team. And this is, in the 90s. And Prescriptives, when I say Prescriptives was huge, and I think most people know Prescriptives was owned, it was under the Lauder brands. When I say Prescriptives was huge, I mean, they were as big, and fight me on this, as MAC. Prescriptives was massive. And they were the ones who put custom color foundation matching on the map. They're the ones who took color theory and made women think about what it meant to be cool, neutral, warm, and celebrated diversity, really. I mean, hats off to Prescriptives. They were really incredible.
They were absolutely at the forefront. I remember working with didn't they have, well, I know they had, I hope I'm getting her name right, their celebrity artist there for a while. Was it Trisha Sawyer? Is that who they were working with? I remember I did several shows and some events, and I was on Trisha's team for a while. And wasn't she like Sharon Stone's personal makeup artist?
Yes,
I'm
she
like,
was.
all the training's coming back to me here. She was
Oh,
lovely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, we worked with her. We brought her in when we were at Nordstrom. We brought her in, and that was a really big deal because I think Casino had just come out. Um, but I just remember being on the artistry team with Prescriptives and doing all the runway shows for New York Fashion Week when it was under a tent, kids, when it was under an actual tent in
It
Brighton.
was actually under a tent.
Yes, it was. It was 7th on 6th. So I have to say though, Prescriptives was just, the team who worked there, everyone who ran it, they were great. And I don't get shocked often in this industry, as I know you don't. But I have to say, I was really surprised when they pulled the plug on them because they were just so different, so unique. If you couldn't find a foundation match, you went to Prescriptives and you got help and it worked and it was great. So I don't know. We'll have to do a whole episode. Maybe we can find someone who used to work there and get all the gossip or the glossip and
Right.
find out what happened. But RIP Prescriptives, RIP.
RIP. Yeah, I've heard different versions of, the post-mortem, and it's always from a different person's perspective. So yeah, if anybody out there has any more info, we should probably do a little highlight on them because they were a big deal for a big long time, which reminds me of my first real favorite makeup brand when I started feeling like a grown up. was Ultima 2. The Nakeds.
Oh,
The
oh,
Nakeds. I did not know Ultima 2 until the Nakeds. And this
oh.
was what my senior year in high school that I discovered the
Okay.
Naked. So my senior year in high school. So I was like finally like starting to feel, well, I don't know. I guess I always felt grown up, but for whatever reason, moving into Ultima 2 made me feel like I wasn't stealing my mom's makeup anymore and I was buying it. I guess it's because it was the first brand I was really investing money in.
Yeah, I think I believe it was Kevin Aquan that they brought in
Hmm.
to be the
Yeah.
naked for them.
Yep.
And he killed it. I mean that it was to say that the Naked's Ultima 2 was a success is an understatement. This was what, for all of our listeners out there that were like, "Oh, I loved, when MAC had colors lipsticks like Chelsea and Twiggy." And I mean, I'm really going back now with the old names. Um, Trust me, it was because of Ultima 2 the Nakeds that MAC was able to come out with a lot of these nude tones. Ultima 2 did it was such a great brand. It was so innovative and so new at the time. No one had ever seen colors like this before. So they did a great job. They really did.
I still remember getting dressed for my prom and just the way those little ivory compacts would close with just like that clean black and
Yeah.
oh, it just felt so grown up to me. I
Yeah.
felt like Mac felt artistry, but it was fun for whatever reason. And I grew up with Chanel makeup. So, but for whatever reason, Ultimate 2 just hit just the right note. I think I felt like Chanel was my mother's brand,
It was.
which I
It
very
was.
quickly got over. It was, but I quickly got over that. But yeah,
Right. Yeah.
pretty
Well,
incredible.
they did a great job. And I agree with you, Hillary. I think they brought in a whole new younger generation to the cosmetic department because before that it was all, older women, business women. There weren't the young girls shopping in the cosmetic department. We were relegated to the aisles of, Caldors and Sears when they had makeup and CVS and drugstores. That's where we were. And that's where we got our makeup. Our moms and older women got their makeup in the department stores and specialty stores. Well, there really weren't specialty stores then, but they got them in the department stores. And it really wasn't until Ultima 2 came along that really started changing, that it was
Hmm.
okay to be a little younger and go in there and buy some cool makeup. Because I can tell you right now, my mom wasn't wearing the nakeds. Like that was not, you know what I'm saying?
Right, right,
That was
right.
definitely us. There was one that you brought up the other day, and I want you to take this one because I remembered it, but I don't think I ever used any product from them.
Okay. So clientele is a brand. Now, here's what I've discovered is that, and I think clientele stopped producing for a while. And I've done some Googling and it appears that they are back. So shame on me. But here's the thing I remember my mom going crazy to find clientele. Like if we were in Dallas, she'd run into Neiman Marcus. She had a person at Neiman Marcus in Dallas just to send her clientele to California because she was having such a hard time finding it. And I remember that it was one of the first makeup brands to fuse skincare and makeup. And there was a concealer. There was this one concealer that I swear to this day she still uses it. The woman's learned how to like hoard and use it sparingly. God bless her. And it's a really ooey gooey sticky concealer. I'm gonna have to try it the next time I see her because she still has like 10 boxes of it. But it was one of the first brands that did skincare infused makeup or makeup that skincare that thought it was makeup, makeup that thought it was skincare, whatever. And it was a beautiful product.
I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and you're probably going to kill me for saying this, or maybe you won't. I don't know. But we need to have your mom on. We need to have Lorraine come on and talk to us about her journey as a makeup artist, as a makeup lover, and as a woman of a certain age, how she's navigating beauty now, because she has such an incredible history. and is, such a neat woman and such a great personality that I don't know. I want her on the podcast. You heard it here first. I know she's listening. So if Hillary doesn't want you on, then you and I can do our own little episode.
Well, I'm happy to leave you guys alone together. That's no problem. But I'd love to have her on. Maybe I'll just sit quietly in the corner and let you guys go for it.
I would love that. I would love
Yeah,
that. All
we'll
right, you
let
heard
her
it
come
here
in and
first.
co-host.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it. So the
That's so
next
fun.
one, and your mom would probably know this brand and probably used it, was Versace. I can't tell you how many times that I meet a younger artist and I'll mention Versace makeup and they look at me like, oh, Versace's going to do a makeup line. They have no clue that Versace actually had more than fragrances, had an actual makeup line. Much like Gucci and Yves Saint Laurent, all the fashion houses have had a makeup line, kids. Versace had one. And if you can only imagine what the packaging was like, the product, I'm going to be honest, was okay. The packaging on that line was unbelievable. I would actually kill to get my hands on some of it because it was so 80s. It was so opulent. It was like makeup for maximalists. Like it was really stunning to look at. And it failed. It just didn't do well. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it kind of hit at that time where people weren't, they just didn't know what to do with it. It's like we had the Mac, which was so simple and being taken seriously, and then the Versace came in, and it split people's personalities, I think, a little bit too much. They didn't have the concept that they didn't have to be loyal to just one brand. And the performance with the Mac and the simplicity of the Mac with the Versace, it was just kind of like, whoo, the brains blew off. But have you ever seen their dinnerware? Like
Oh
their
yeah, I have
plates,
some.
their dinnerware.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it reminds me, they have some very tasteful, but the opulent dinnerware, it's like they translated it right into their beauty. I think it's so fantastic as a vintage beauty collector. But yeah, it was not, it was more for show. It was almost more of an accessory to the branding, if you will.
Well, I think you're right, Hill, because it really was around the same time Mac was just really, coming up. And this was a time where everything was going more grunge, more minimal. It's almost like they missed the mark. They should have come in earlier in the game, and they came in a lot later in the game. And I think that's when stuff was really, we weren't into the opulent. Because I remember when it came out, it wasn't for me. Like I was too grungy and like too interested in like my matte Mac and like all the, all that stuff.
It felt, and I mean this without any without any badness to anyone. So forgive me, don't come for me, whatever. It seemed very Euro trash at the time. It didn't fit quite into the pocket that it needed to. Came at a time when it turned people off because we were in our emo phase.
Yeah, it was
The
a
culture
timing
clash.
issue. Yeah, it was a timing issue on that. So, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you saw them resurrect it because I know Versace's hot again now. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to resurrect the beauty.
I'm so here for it. I would love to see it. I didn't appreciate it the way that I would have, I didn't appreciate it then the way that I absolutely would now.
I agree. I
So,
agree. Hopefully they'll
but
hear this.
isn't it funny looking back at, we turned our nose up at so many things in the 90s when everything was so grungy and blasé and no blush and no this and no that. And now I look back and I think people generations before us probably had the same experience and were like, gosh, we were so dumb. Why? Like, I remember intentionally being like, no, I'm going to shave my head. I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like
That's a whole other episode. Yes, we'll go down that memory lane another time. Um, and then there's also just a few ones we can quickly cover. Becca Cosmetics recently went out. That wasn't too long ago that went out. And that was a great line. That they were really known for their under eye concealer, their correcting concealer, which was excellent. Cargo, Tony and Tina. I mean, these were all really cute little indie brands that had great product. And RIP kids, you know? So
R.I.P.
when you go into Sephora now and you go, because, you know, if I want trendy or to look at young, I will go to Sephora and Ulta. If I want classic, I go to the department and specialty doors, right? Let's face it. I look around now in Sephora and Ulta, and I can go around and tell you in the next 5 years which brands are not going to be here. I'm not going to tell you, but I can absolutely tell you which ones will no longer be here. And we'll be talking about them, just like we were talking about some of these other like small indie brands as well.
Susan, we both have had this experience. So, and this is something that we ask buyers about all the time. And buyers, God love them, they take bets on small brands, and they're not always betting big. They're not always betting for the long term. They're betting for the short pop and the short hit, because, you know, you have to anniversary your numbers as a retailer. And sometimes a collection of, you know, one hit wonders or small collection wonders, they're a flash in the pan, will get you the bigger bump than the long horse that stays in the game. So and you know, a seasoned buyer has to really know how to do both. But I wonder if we should maybe have another episode and our audience can tell us about things that we look for and that we kind of know when we look at something, we're like, ooh, that's going to stick around, or that's going to be a flash in the pan. Because sometimes I look at things and I fall in love, and then I think, oh, it's not going to be here forever. And, you know, I'll buy multiples, but we've all had things that get discontinued. And it's interesting for our audience out there that is maybe considering starting a brand. A lot of people are. Maybe if we share some of the things that over our combined, 60 years in the industry, some of the dead giveaways that are like, that's going to leave a footprint, or that's going to wash away on the shore.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think there's so many great ideas, and that's what's so wonderful about this industry. There's so many new ideas, and for every bad idea, there's 10 good ones. And I truly believe that. It's, I think, a different game now than it used to be. I think no one is really looking for longevity. They're looking for these quick hits. And I'm hoping the pendulum will swing a little bit back to the greats and longevity. But I think for the near future, the way we are with the mall of Instagram and everything so quick and disposable. I mean, stories only last, 24 hours of your Instagram. So that tells you how the world is really operating right now. And I think with makeup, unfortunately, everyone's always looking for the next thing, because I'm like you. I will look at, say, for instance, a new blush, right? And I'll go check it out and I'll say, oh my God, this is just like 16 others. Everybody's doing a liquid blush right now. And let me tell you about the ones that were great 30 years ago. But, you know, people have short memories. And I think beauty is always about what's new, what's next, evolving, changing. But every so often you hit it big and you hit that vamp, you know, or you hit that one product that will forever go down in history, but they are few and far between. So speaking of history, there's 3 brands that come to mind that are, to me, classic history, makeup history, and classic luxury that are no longer with us, but they are from a different generation. So if you are under the age of, oh, I don't know, maybe 50, 49, some of these brands you may not know. Your grandmother, your mother may have worn them, or maybe, like me, you know, you were young and venturing into department stores and you got your first taste of beauty through some of these classic brands. The first one I want to mention, because it's the place where I bought my very first eyeshadow, is Germain Montet. Germain Montet was such an incredible, gorgeous, luxury, beautiful makeup line from 1936 to 1987. And I remember the eyeshadow. It was called Silver Palm, and it was a beautiful minty green shimmer shadow. I probably bought it one of those days that I was doing my fragrance modeling.
Beautiful. Isn't it? It's so whimsical and it carries us away. I mean, I look at even my vintage makeup collection and some of the colors and the tones and the textures. Like one brand, they're still around in skincare, but they were the biggest thing in color was Helena Rubinstein.
Oh,
And when I try, because I'm an insane person, when I try on some of her shades from the 40s, the 50s, even into the 30s, the colors, I mean, I put them on, take them off, but the shades are incredible. The formulas are incredible. And the color's gone. She doesn't do color anymore.
I know. It's sad. Helena Rubinstein was a great color brand, very similar to Je Monte.
Mhm.
But I think, these brands just did opulence, they did color, they celebrated women and femininity. And I think that's a little bit about what we were talking about a few minutes ago is missing that they weren't really looking for youth. It was almost like they met women at the age they were at and celebrating their glamour at that age. Because when you Google and look at ads from, say, Je Monte or, Helena Rubinstein or even Lauder, from some of the ads from back in the day, the models were definitely older and at least older looking. And yes, it's indicative of those times. The hairstyles and the makeup definitely aged women. However, I do think it was that celebration of what it means to be a woman and celebrate you and celebrate the glamour and the joy in makeup. It was like, feel good, put some lipstick on, and things will just get better. Um, Another brand that I think rests in peace, from what I understand, it's hard to get information on this one, but I remember their foundation was a biphase oil and pigment. It came with a beautiful gold wand that you stuck in the glass bottle, stirred it around, and boy, oh boy, was this makeup gorgeous and for mature dry skin. And that was Alexander DeMarkov.
Oh, wow. I loved DeMarkov. I did. I loved DeMarkov.
A
And
beautiful line.
that foundation, the dry down and the formulation, anybody that's out there that's thinking about um, reformulating or formulating, don't be afraid to have a biphase in your foundation because it was a pretty advanced formulation. And I would be really interested to see a modern tweak on it now. It
I
was
think
beautiful.
I think it was called Countess Isima, I believe is what it was.
Yes, yes, it was.
And it was, I mean, the shades were hysterical because they were
Oh,
really orange. I
and
mean, they were
orange.
really like
Yeah.
pink and orange and like
Yes.
definitely for a certain clientele. I mean, there's no way around it. Some of them looked like they were almost literally a pink blush in a foundation bottle. But what I loved about the whole DeMarkov line, again, that opulence, that glamour. And I mean, we don't even have time to talk about the women, the beauty advisors, the women who worked these counters. So many of them were, especially for some of these older luxury brands, you know, and we started out so young, Hillary, in the industry. And some of these women, I mean, they've long passed now because they were in their 60s and 70s selling makeup then, and they were so glamorous and so just, oh, it was like, and some of them were so mean, and some of them were so great.
They were 100% the grand dames of the cosmetic floor. And every luxury cosmetic floor, and even in like the little teeny towns that were lucky enough to have a department store, there's always that one. She is the grand dame, and sometimes she is the meanest bird you've ever met, or she was just the snootiest, but with a heart of gold. I mean, there were so many flavors of this woman. Sometimes there was the mask of makeup that it was impenetrable. But if you got on her good side, she took care of you. I mean, she was the guardian of that cosmetic floor
Yeah,
for sure.
whenever I would go and visit an account, I would always look for the Grand Dame. and you would find her and befriend her and gift her and whatever she needed, whether she worked for your brand that you were repping or not. That was the person that you needed to make your best friend, to really get the whole gossip and the lay down. They knew it all. And they were the ones with the biggest books, and they were the ones with the biggest clientele, and usually the ones that really sold the most. They were lifers. They really were.
And that's one thing, particularly, with your history with Chanel, because you were in so many of the different doors, and with my history, the beauty director, because I saw all the educators coming in, we realized how important clienteling was back then. And that's something that people don't even think about. And I feel for the generations now, like your daughter, and generations that are younger, because all they're constantly being served ads, ads, ads. Buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. But we used to have someone that actually had our name and our phone number in a book with our purchase history, and they would contact us in the summer. Honey, it's time to change your moisturizer. It's going to start getting hot. Oh, honey, for fall, you're going away to school. You're going to need 3 of these lipsticks. I put them aside for you. Oh, remember you told me that you're breaking out. We got this, or I reserved this for you. It's fall, it's winter. You're going to need to switch to your night cream. They had your back, and I miss that.
It's still there, Hill. I think you see it, in certain accounts, certain doors, certain retailers, certain companies have them. You're not going to get it at the Sephoras and the Ultimas of the world. You're going to get this at the Bergdorfs, the Neiman's, the Nordstrom. You're going to get this at the higher end luxury department stores, and you will get women that have worked there for ages. I can still go into Saks in New York, and I can still find the sales associates I worked with, and a lot of them are still there. Not all, but a lot of them are still there, and they still clientele. I think a lot of it is done through texting, a lot of it is done through email now, but there's still, I saw some women and men on the phone making calls to people and filling orders, having them delivered. So you still see that, but I agree with you. It's becoming less and less having your one salesperson who can help you with all your beauty needs. So maybe the pendulum will swing. Maybe it'll go back to that again, because I do believe people love good service, especially in our industry. It's such a personal industry. I really feel strongly that it may go back to those days where people, especially this newer generation coming up, will say, I want that intimacy. I want that relationship with someone who actually knows me and cares about me. So maybe we'll see it come back. One of the last ones, Charles of the Ritz.
Charles of the Ritz.
I knew you. I put this one on for you, just so you, because I knew with your vintage beauty channel on TikTok, which is amazing, and everyone should watch it because it's just, it's so cute and it's so adorable and so educational. But Charles of the Ritz was 1919 to 2002. I did not realize
yes.
them. They kept them going a little longer. But I thought of you when I was going through brands that are gone, rest in peace. I said, oh my God, of all the ones that will really get her all misty-eyed, my beautiful vintage beauty BFF Hillary, Charles of the Ritz. Look you're even tearing up now. I just said the name.
It's true. Well, I love telling history through the lens of beauty. Our history, they say history is told by the conquerors, or history is told by the ones that win and the brands that are still around. But when we find these little artifacts, if they're ads, if they're compacts, whatever they are, they give us a much clearer picture of what a woman's life was like in that day at that time. And we're able to unravel and go back and give ourselves a more clear picture of what her life was actually like versus what we've been told that it was like. So it's convenient. So I'm a little bit of a detective in all of that. But Charles of the Ritz really trailblazed and was dainty and ladylike and glamorous, but also really served a purpose and created very good quality products at a time when the industry was a fledgling. It was so new and it wasn't really sure which direction it was about to go. And it was just before, just as some of the others were coming in and beginning to create the color kerfuffle that was coming from Europe. So, women, before 1919, they were going in the back doors and mixing up their, alkanet rouges and lips at home. But it wasn't until we started seeing color trickling in from Europe, and Charles of the Ritz definitely helped to capture that. So I love finding his pieces.
You know what I love, and I am a collector as well, like you, and I love the history and all of this. But I have to say, I love this story of Charles the Ritz. Apparently, made a comment to Estee Lauder that she wouldn't be around for long. And I just think that, this is just so funny. All of the history of the cosmetic brands back then really all going after each other. Helena Rubinstein, Estee Lauder, Charles the Red, like they were all looking for a piece of the pie, much like it is today. Nothing really changes in the ugly world of beauty, right? I mean, it's still, what it is. And I just find it so fascinating, the ones that have still are still in existence. And if you think about it, the only one really still around of that time, is probably Lauder. Am I right? I mean,
It
yeah,
is Lauder. It's
it's
definitely Lauder. But and Lauder was a little later. Lauder came later
It
to the
was.
game. So it was Revson, which became
Yep,
Revlon. So it was
correct.
Revson, it was Helena, it was Elizabeth Arden.
Yep.
Those guys really
Oh yeah,
forged.
Arden's still around. You're right.
Yeah,
Arden's
those
still around.
guys really forged a path on the heels of like an Ubagon, a Richard Hudnut. But yes, Helena, I mean, Elizabeth, I mean, Lauder, Evelyn. Goodness. Lauder,
Estee.
yeah, Estee, Evelyn, all of them. And because they did keep it in the family for so long. So Estee definitely learned from Elizabeth and Helena. And even from Charles. She and Charles Revson had some real knockdown, kick 'em outs, but there's nothing like the first three and the things that they did to each other. I mean, Charles Revson was notorious because he started with polishes. He was notorious for going around to stores and unscrewing the lids on competitors' polishes so they would dry out in the stores and people would not purchase from them again because they would say that their formulas were unstable.
Yeah,
Ew.
there was a great, it does not, look at me, completely not shocked by that behavior. How sad is that I'm not shocked at all by that behavior
Unbelievable,
in the
right?
industry. No, I find that when looking back in this history, there was a musical that came out a few years ago called War Paint. I saw it on Broadway, and a book. It was based on the book. And I should find that, and I can put it on Instagram. So some of you, if you want to read a little more history about the cosmetic industry back in the day, but it really was about, the whole battle between all these beauty brands and all these beauty mavens and women who started these companies. But it was a great musical, and it was, based on this book, and I'll find it. I'll post it on Instagram. But
Well, War Paint, are you talking? Yeah, War Paint is incredible. It's such a
yeah,
good read. It's such a big read, but it's such a
I
good read.
well, I was, the musical was so
Yeah.
good. Like the
Mhm.
musical was fantastic. And
Yeah.
it closed. It didn't do, I loved that musical. I wish they'd turn it into a movie. They should turn that into a movie. It was so good. It really was great. Yeah. So,
I think we should sit on casting, script, continuity, and costume and everything.
oh, I want to be,
Maybe we need to get this going. Maybe we need
there you go.
to get
I think
War Paint. I mean, come
yeah.
on, Suze. We've pitched Hollywood together before. Why not do it again?
That's
Right.
true, Hill. Yeah, we could do it again, my friend. Are there
Mhm.
any products that we miss like super fast? I think, as I was doing this list of, memory lane and rest in peace, these brands that have come and gone, the new ones, the classic ones. The only real product I can come up with that I actually really truly miss, and I would love to have it now, is the original Spice lip pencil from MAC. I really do miss it. Um, And
Are
it's,
you going to try Mob Beauties? You know, Vic made I
yeah,
actually saw his notes when he was in
yeah,
LA, and
yeah,
Vic showed us the original spice, his new spice. The
yeah,
new formula is a little different, but the
yeah.
color, I think it might do it for you, Suze. It's worth checking it out.
I'll
I
have
was
to check
really
it out.
impressed.
I'll have to check it out. But, honestly, besides that, there's not a lot that I pine for. I think maybe it's because I spent so many years, with brands that were notorious. Chanel, I'm looking at you for one, and Mac too, that just notorious for discontinuing product. Um, and I think you learn early on not to get attached to colors and to product because formulas change, trends change, and new ingredients can often make something better, you know?
Yeah, Chanel and Mac have both broken my heart over and over again. And one thing that we are seeing right now is we're seeing a reemergence and a resurgence of what they're calling the vintage shades. Almost every brand has started to bring back some of their 90s shades, but when we compare them, they're not the same. The ingredients are different. Plus,
Yeah,
in product development, because you're comparing a sample to a sample or a swatch to a swatch, they
right.
change manufacturers, they change ingredients. Over time, the shades shift. So
Yeah.
it's almost like you have to go back to the OG retain sample, which people often somehow the labs don't keep, or when they send them back and forth to each other, labs think, oh, we don't need to keep their old sample. We're going to do
Yeah.
it. So they end up in a graveyard somewhere, but we are seeing things come back. Well, the thing that we're seeing most recently is that a lot of brands are bringing back their old vintage collections right now because of the 90s. I mean, look, it's every 25 years, things are vintage and fashion cycles, beauty's no different. So we're seeing brands like MAC and everybody else bring things back. Unfortunately, for a number of reasons that we all know in product development, what was original and what they bring back. Ingredients are different. The labs have changed. Their benchmarks are lost. So that's why I like looking at like a mob where I can see Vic's actual old notes and I know he's working from those notes. But it's fun. It's fun to see, the whimsy and people are looking back and they want to see some of those vintage things again. So we might get a new spin on an old favorite. And those of us that are curmudgeonly and we do not want to like the new ones, maybe we should give them a spin and see what we think.
Yeah, I think the only product that I ever saw like my mom get upset about, and she's not a big makeup person at all, but when Chanel discontinued pink sugar lipstick, I mean, that was a rough day for Glennis. Like she really was she was upset. And it was such a good color. I really have been searching around for a dupe for pink sugar. I know as soon as I say that, a lot of our listeners are sitting there saying, "Oh my God, Chanel pink sugar lipstick was the best color. It was just a true pink. It was a medium mid pink. It wasn't too mauvey. It wasn't brown. It was a real neutral. It ran a little cool. It didn't really run super warm, but had a little shimmer. It was like the perfect pink. And I remember being in the office and fighting about it and just saying, I can't believe why, of all the ones, that one. I thought it was doing really well too. But then I think it started to take a hit, like Cocoa Pink did too. A lot of those pinks started kind of going away to the world of brown, and now every lipstick out there is brown based. And I think hopefully we'll maybe get a change and maybe start to see some of the real true bases come through in some of these lip products. But that's a whole other episode, our wish list episode of what things might, come back. Because not everyone's good in brown. Sorry, kids. Not everyone's great in brown.
And as you get older, you do start to find a little more vitality in the brighter colors. I mean, there's a reason the little old lady in Daytona Beach is wearing coral lipstick. Come on.
It's true. It's true. It's true. Well, this was such a fun little hop, skip, and jump down memory lane. And rest in peace to all of our wonderful beauty brands and Also, to rest in peace to all the mavens who paved the way for all of us in this industry. Truly, we owe a lot of thanks to those women.
And to all of our memories of growing up with beauty and all of the little things that made us feel so grown up and empowered and fancy and fearless and all of those wonderful feelings that you have when you're young and diving into beauty.
And
What a romance.
and hopefully we're feeling that way now too. Because I'm, gearing up for my second chapter here. So
Me
I'm ready
too.
to go. Let's go, Hill. We still
Let's
look
do it.
good. Let's do it.
Let us know if you guys have a walk down memory lane. Have we forgotten anything? I'm sure we have, because the brain. But let us know what you thought of, and maybe we can help you find some dupes, because the things you loved then might not work for you now. So we are happy to find you some dupes, and maybe that's an episode all on its own. Like, if you were a loyalist to the whole kitten franchise, what do you use now? Like, what do you swap in? If you did that, now you should do this. Maybe we make like a chart or something.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of women out there that would probably appreciate their 2.0 version of beauty and what that looks like.
Let's do that, Susan.
Let's do it. Hit us up on Instagram, friends. Write in the comments what you want from us, and we are here to serve in the name of beauty.
As always, at Life Gloss Podcast. See you guys there. Stay glossy, Susan.
Stay glossy, Hill.